to my channel. At Frolic and Courage, I like to make videos on travel, food, and lifestyle, and today we're talking about which is better, townhouse or an apartment, pros and the cons. I've lived in an apartment for almost 10 years of my life. Recently, my Hun and I are first-time home buyers. We bought our first townhome just a couple of months ago, and there are some distinct differences, advantages, disadvantages to owning a townhouse versus living in an apartment, and that's what we're going to talk about right now. So there's a number of different factors that we can consider. The first is going to be space. In an apartment, you have a lot less space. Most apartments, whether it's 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom, are typically under about 1,200 square feet. So you have smaller living spaces, smaller bathrooms, smaller living rooms, smaller closets. Everything is just going to be a bit smaller. In apartments, you can choose your floor plan, so you can choose whether something has 500 square feet of space versus 600 square feet of space or 800 square feet of space. It could be 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 1 bath, 2 bath. You have a lot of different options when it comes to picking out space for an apartment. But overall, apartments from my experience are a bit on the small side. Very rarely will you see like multi-level apartments unless you've got $1 million and you live in some penthouse New York apartment. But besides that, you'll usually live on just one single floor of an apartment. In a townhouse, you can have 2 or 3 different stories. They're typically over 1,000 square feet, and some of them even come with a balcony, a little bit of a backyard, a little bit of a front yard, a garage, sometimes even a little bit of a patio, depending on where you live. In a townhome, the first floor is typically a ground floor, a bedroom, or an office. Then you have your main living space, and if you have a 3rd floor, that's usually where all of your bedrooms are. So with townhomes, you're getting a lot more space. So which is better, a townhouse or an apartment in terms of space? I would give the award to a townhouse. Our townhouse is 3 times the amount of space than our 1 bedroom, 1 bath apartment. The next category is cost. In terms of cost, apartments, you usually have to pay some form of deposit, which is either a couple $100s depending on where you live versus a couple months rent based off your credit. You'll also have to pay an application fee in addition to any types of pet or amenity fees. That's really all you're gonna have to pay, other than your monthly rent, of course, and your utilities. The smaller your apartment, usually the smaller your rent is going to be. The larger your apartment, the larger your rent. Utilities tend to be cheaper in apartments too. Because you're heating or cooling a smaller space, you don't use that much electricity or gas. And so your utility bills tend to be a little bit smaller. Townhomes, like we mentioned before, have so much more space. So you're trying to heat and cool multiple levels over a larger square footage of space. So your utility bills are also going to be a lot more expensive. With apartments, you have your deposits and your application fees. With townhomes, you're actually owning this home. So your fees in terms of deposits, inspections, housing options, and upgrades, all of your closing costs, down payments, legal fees, all of that. And I did a whole video. If you really want to see the breakdown of how much it costs out of pocket to own a townhome, check out that video in the card above, the description box below. But the upfront costs of owning a townhome are tens of thousands of dollars. There's also the HOA fees you have to pay every single month, in addition to your mortgage payment and the higher cost of utilities. So which is better in terms of cost, apartment living versus an actual townhome? I would give the award to apartments. They are smaller, they are cheaper, the utility bills tend to be a little bit less. The 3rd category are amenities. So what are amenities? Amenities are those extra perks that you can get while living somewhere, whether it's a pool or a gym or a playground, a dog walking park. These are the little extras that make each property unique and fun to live there. For apartments, amenities vary based on the property. You can have pools, you can have walking trails, you can have fitness centers depending on your apartment complex. Some don't even offer amenities, so it's really up to the complex and the area that you live in. Throughout my time in apartments, I've lived in places that offer resort-style pools, tennis courts. One apartment complex even had a Thanksgiving dinner where they hired catering. They hired a mixologist to come bring mocktails and cocktails. They had fresh music and a DJ. And on the other side of the spectrum, I've lived in apartments that have none of that. No fitness center, nothing. All you get is an apartment and a laundry center next door. In a townhouse, amenities can vary as well. Depending on your HOA and your community, you can also have tennis courts and resort style pools and walking trails and dog parks. It really just depends on which one you choose. So the award in this category, which is better, an apartment or a townhome, I would say they're the same. I would say depending on your community that you choose, the amenities could be exactly the same. You can have a lot of amenities or none at all in either an apartment or a townhome. For my fourth comparison, we're gonna talk about community, and my legs are hurting, so I'm gonna pick you guys up. In an apartment, you are living amongst different people. You have one large building or multiple buildings with many different units in it, and you're just one piece of the unit. So your chances of running into people, meeting people in passing while you're going to and from your apartment are great. Apartments tend to be in densely populated areas, so there are more chances to meet people and build a sense of community there. Community in terms of pets, however, you'll have to pay a fee to get your pets there if your apartment complex allows any pets at all. Since everyone is living in the same building, you'll also have a community of smells. If somebody is cooking something delicious, everybody in the building is gonna smell it. On the other side, if somebody burns something or smokes, everybody in the apartment community is going to smell it too. And finally, in an apartment, you can actually find a like-minded community. If you are elderly, there are elderly-specific homes. If you like more luxurious living, penthouse living, you can find an apartment community that caters to the luxury crowd. If you are an avid dog walker, you can find apartment communities that are very pet friendly. So it's easier to build a little bit of a community in an apartment. Now in a townhome, it's a more private residence. Instead of having one building with multiple units, you just have your particular townhome and maybe a row of people or a small row of communities nearby. Because you have your own row of the townhome, it tends to be a little bit more private, a little bit more quiet, and people tend to keep a little bit more to themselves, which is not different in an apartment. You can still do that, but in townhomes, you're not passing anyone by through a shared door. It's just you in your unit. Townhomes are typically in more suburban areas, and if you cook something that smells good or bad, you're the only person that's going to smell it. And in terms of pets, you can have the pets you want without paying an additional pet deposit fee or anything like that because you own your home, so you can have a community of pets with you without paying any additional fees. So which is better, an apartment or townhome in terms of community? Well, it depends on what kind of community you want. So I would say they're about the same. If you're looking for a more social environment, then perhaps you can go into an apartment that's a bit more social, or find a really incredibly active townhome community. Or if you're looking for something a little bit more private, you can still be private in an apartment. It just depends on whether or not your personality wants to deal with a lot of people or a little bit amount of people and how much you choose to socialize. So now let's get into parking. In an apartment community, your parking can either be a part of your rent, it can be a separate fee, you can have an assigned or a fixed space, or you can have reserved spacing or street parking. It could be permitted, it can be completely open, it could be shut off and towing enforced for visitors. If it's late at night, then sometimes you may not be able to find parking in an apartment community because all the spaces are all taken up. And if it's a more social community, then if someone has a party and all the spaces are taken up, you end up walking a really long distance to get to your unit. Townhomes come with either a 1 or 2 car garage. So right off the bat, you have a dedicated parking space. Some townhomes also come with a little bit of a driveway or a backyard, or at least a piece of concrete that you could park your cars on. Some of them come with dedicated or assigned parking, or if you have no garage, you might just have to find street parking. But overall, in terms of parking, I'm gonna give the award to a townhome. Man, nothing beats a good solid garage. Oh my gosh, we have a 2-car garage now and we absolutely love it. While it's true, some apartments you can rent an additional garage, or you might have some type of garage parking. It depends on your unit and how much you're actually paying for it. But I would say townhomes give you a private garage, and so I give the winner to townhome. Whether you're in a townhome or in an apartment, there's also cars that pass by that are really loud, which brings me to my next point. Noise. Because you're in a shared apartment building, the noise is kind of out of control in an apartment. The walls are usually really paper thin. You are one of many different units, so if there's noise on the top floor, chances are you're gonna hear it down on the bottom floor. Sound travels quickly and fast in an apartment building. For example, we were on the ground floor of a 3-story building. This little toddler girl would scream her lungs off. She wasn't hurt, she wasn't hungry, she would just scream just to scream, and we heard that loud and clear, even though they were on the top level and we were on the ground level, and it was just fun. I've also heard relationship disputes in my apartment too. My neighbors right across from me did not get along. They only stayed at the unit for maybe about a year, but I can hear very clearly, whether I wanted to or not, that he had a problem going out and hanging out with his friends, and his DJ business and his car were taking up too much time, and she needed time, and he was mad because she was nagging and she was on his back because he wanted to do what he wanted to do to bring in money, and they fought often. And my final example was of this guy, let's call him Bob, who lived upstairs. Bob, because of the small space in his apartment, had floor-to-ceiling storage units, and he would fill those up with all kinds of different crap. Like, I don't know what he had in there, but it sounded like bowling balls, because every now and again something from one of those shelves would come crashing down and hit the bottom floor, which was right above us, and we'd hear a loud thud or a loud boom, and it would kind of startle me or either wake me up at night sometimes. And Bob also had a wonderful habit, which, you know, go Bob, good for you, of exercising every morning at 7 a.m. Being woken up to Bob exercising in his bedroom right above us. It wasn't cool, man. It wasn't cool, but what are you gonna do? It's an apartment complex. There's no sense in complaining because Bob's gotta exercise. There's nothing to really complain about. You just have to accept the fact that there's going to be a lot of noise from all the different units, and you might actually be the one making the noise. I've lived on the 3rd floor of an apartment complex before, and I needed to exercise too, so I couldn't fault Bob because I know I have exercise in my apartment on the 3rd floor too. So there's gonna be a lot of noise in an apartment complex. In a townhouse, you only have 1 to 2 neighbors maximum, and the walls are very soundproofed and insulated. So at most, the noise you're gonna hear is the noise from the people in your own unit or the really dulled, faint noise of your neighbors because of the soundproofing between the wall. You still may hear loud cars with loud music banging at all hours, whether you're in an apartment complex or a townhouse. So which is better, townhouse versus apartment in terms of noise? Townhouse wins all the way. My 7th category is for maintenance. Which is better, a townhouse versus an apartment in terms of maintenance? In apartments, everything is included in the cost of your rent. So if there's a hole in the wall or a hole in the floor or your carpet floods, all the way to your one little double or triple A battery in your smoke detector goes awry, apartment complexes and their maintenance staff not only perform those repairs, but they also cover that expense. It's a part of your rent. See, landlords are legally bound to make sure that your unit is in a fit and habitable condition. So all of the costs of maintenance and all of that burden shifts to the landlord, not on you. You're only responsible for keeping the inside of your apartment clean, which, since apartments tend to be smaller, it doesn't really take that long to clean a 1-bedroom, 1-bath, 1 living room, 1 kitchen in a smaller space. You don't have to worry about any exterior maintenance or landscaping. You just kind of walk to your unit and you see the beautiful flowers and the nice little shrubs, and you don't have to do any of it. All you have to do is pay your rent on time, and all of that is covered. In a townhouse, if you're buying a new build like we did, at first the warranty will cover a lot of the maintenance of your townhouse, but after that, you are on your own. We have to pay for any additional problems that happen to arise in our place out of our own pockets after the warranty expires. The HOA fees that we have to pay in addition to our mortgage every month cover stuff like exterior maintenance, so they handle snow removal and all of our landscaping, which is really nice, but the upkeep on the exterior of our home is ours and ours alone. We have to clean the inside of our home, which, like I mentioned, it's 3 times the size of our apartment, so it's gonna take longer to clean and maintain a townhouse. So ultimately, which is better in terms of maintenance, an apartment versus a townhome? Apartment for sure, 1000%. So if apartments win the award for maintenance, what about customization? You see, in an apartment, you don't own your space at all. You're just renting a space from a landlord who actually owns the property. So you are limited in what you can customize. You might be able to add a couple of pictures, but not too many holes in the walls. You might be able to paint, but you have to paint it back. If you want to knock down walls, if you want to do any major renovations, like totally change out the carpet or add new kitchen appliances, that's not possible in an apartment. For the outside, there's nothing you can do as well. You can't change any of the landscaping. You can't change the exterior paint colors or anything to do with the property or the parking lot. That's not up to you, that's up to the landlord. In a townhouse, however, you own it, so pretty much sky's the limit. If I wanted to knock down these kitchen cabinets or repaint them or get a new stove or new flooring, I can completely do that, all at my own expense, of course, but I'm free to do it. If I want to paint the walls, I can paint the walls. If I want to have some type of wallpaper, which you guys have suggested, so thank you for your comments. But if I want to customize anything in my townhome, I can. There may be some rules on the exterior because I live in a community with an HOA, and in townhomes, if there is an HOA, that's something that you have to consider. There may be certain paint colors or certain types of things that you can and cannot do, so check those rules. But overall, the inside is completely up to you, completely free to customize. So which is better in terms of customization, an apartment versus a townhouse? Townhouse for the win. Now let's talk about a new category. Flexibility. I think I just popped a muscle or something. I'm getting old. Apartments are incredibly flexible. You're only bound to the terms of your lease. So if you have a short-term lease that's only a couple months, that's all you're legally obligated to pay. Or if you have a year-long lease, a 2 years long lease, that's your only legal obligation. Some people have a month-to-month obligation where all you have to provide is 30, 60, or 90 days notice to vacate if you wanted to move and go somewhere else. And that's it. Once you're moved out, the burden is off you. It's back onto the landlord. For instance, I was vacationing in Madrid and I met this really cool couple at a cooking class. The couple lived in the UK, and once their lease was up, they decided to just up and move to a different country, stay at an Airbnb for about 2 to 3 months at a time in a new country every 2 to 3 months just to see where they wanted to live and just see something new. They had that flexibility because they were in an apartment. And there are even situations where you can break your lease if, say, you entered into a year-long or a 2-year-long lease and you found something better, or if you say, you know what, I want to move across the country or to a whole different country. If you wanted to break your lease midway through, you can do that, but you're gonna pay and you might get into some legal trouble. I don't know, depends on your property unit and your manager and the terms of your lease, but you could pay money and break your lease and still be done with the unit. In a townhouse, it's not so easy to break a mortgage. You own the property. If you just say, you know what, I'm done townhouse, I'm out, guess what? That mortgage is going to follow you wherever you go. If you decide to lease out your townhome, you now must get lawyers involved to draw up a leasing agreement, but you still own the property, so it's still your responsibility. The only time that you can get out of the responsibility of owning a townhouse is if you sell it. And even then, if you sell it, you better make sure you sell it for a lot more than you bought it, or else you're still gonna have that debt to the bank for the difference. So which is better in terms of flexibility, an apartment versus a townhouse? I'm gonna give that to the apartment. My 10th comparison is the financial benefit. We already established that apartment living tends to be a lot cheaper than townhouse living. Your rent tends to be less, your maintenance costs tend to be practically zero. Those conditions provide a really great environment to get on solid financial footing. In an apartment, I was able to save for an emergency fund, pay off my car, pay off credit card bills, pay off debt, as well as save a little bit more for my future and for a down payment on a home. Because the cost of living was so cheap, I was able to do all of that and still travel. So the financial benefits for me in an apartment were phenomenal because I got to set myself up on a really solid financial foundation because all of my living expenses were a lot less. Now in a townhouse, the mortgage is more expensive, my utilities are more expensive. When you purchase a new townhouse, it's an investment into real estate. So whereas apartment living provided a great and a solid basic financial foundation, I feel like I've upgraded now to the level of investing and investor. I'm able to build wealth a little bit more quickly with real estate. Once we purchased our townhome, all the townhomes that came after us cost a lot more. So we instantly built equity within just a few short months. That's hard to do in an apartment. You don't have any equity. You can save and you can save and you can save, but building equity in terms of wealth, the potential is a lot higher when you actually own your property. So which is better, a townhouse versus an apartment in terms of financial benefit? I would say that goes to both of them, really. I really cherish and I thank God for my time in my apartment because I was able to save, I was able to pay off debt, I was able to travel, and I'm not going to discount that at all. Whereas in a townhouse, I'm able to be an investor, I'm able to take my financial literacy and my financial game from kind of a solid foundation to now the next level with owning property. So I would say there are financial benefits to both situations. In apartments, you can have a great foundation, you can still save, you can still invest in an apartment in stocks and mutual funds and bonds and index funds, but in a townhouse, you're also able to invest in real estate by just living there. So as you can see, the sun is setting in our new townhouse. But I wanted to ask you guys a question. Which is better from your opinion, an apartment or a townhouse? If you currently live in an apartment, what are the pros of apartment living? If you currently live in a townhouse or even a standalone home, what are the pros for you? Leave them in the comments down below. My list is by no means exhaustive, so if you guys want to add on to the conversation, please leave it in the comments down below and let me know what you want to see next. I have a lot of fun doing these house videos, and I also have a lot more content planned. I even have some stuff about Rome from our trip before this whole ordeal happened, if I can post that too. Just let me know what you guys want to see. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to click the like button. It would mean a lot to the growth of my channel. And don't forget to click subscribe while I'll post new videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.